Hello, everyone. Welcome to My Sister's Closet's interview skills training. We will be learning from Maria Stanfield, who is the founder and CEO of My Sister's Closet. And we are going to learn so many wonderful things. Maria has served as the Director of Administration at a very prominent law firm, and is currently working in a variety of areas. And this is her baby. And so this is one of her absolute specialties. And Maria, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Jerry. And as we were just coming out of a very in-depth conversation, if you see the screen, you'll see Cameron's name. She's our intern, and we just love her. But we were all just sharing information about the workforce right now. And we said, you know what, we should probably share some of this as the intro into our interview skills training, because all of it is all coming together and very relevant. So, but one of the things that we just talked about was Jerry just mentioned, she is our executive director, and she just mentioned that a friend of hers retired in December and told her how many jobs at the highest level in the government, how many jobs are available. Jerry, you want to share about that?
Sure. So currently there are 700 SES, which is called Senior Executive Service positions available currently. And on top of that, 45% of those that are currently in SES positions are eligible to retire.
Wow.
So that's going to be by the time June comes around, that number will go up to 800 or 900, because 700 is just a tenth of the amount of SES positions that are available in the federal government.
That is incredible. Yeah. And then Rosita, you had a story of a coworker who recently resigned and doesn't have another job. So the market is really shifted. Do you want to share with our listeners, our viewers on that?
Yeah, and actually, she's one of 4 in the last year that I know who've been willing, who decided to walk away from the job that they had because of what they felt, the stress and the disruption to their work-life balance. And since we are all putting a lot more interest into work-life balance, they've been willing to walk away. Maybe with making some preparations, saving some money and putting it aside and paring down expenses, but have decided to walk away. So I think that's really interesting that even in a slightly inflated economy, people are still willing to walk away if the job experience is not beneficial to them.
So in this job market right now that's ever changing, I mean, we've seen it evolve over time. It's a very interesting dynamic. I mean, we can go where there are, so many jobs available and not enough people to fill them, to there is a job shortage and unemployment is sky high. And so we've seen the ebb and flow of that. But over my career, as Jerry mentioned, I've worked in the human resources field for over 30 years, and I'm really thrilled as a senior HR executive to be able to present to you. It is my baby, as Jerry said earlier, it is my baby. But I will say that My Sister's Closet is really a collective. And the individuals that you will see on screen and who will be sharing with me in this presentation are highly skilled and highly knowledgeable. And we all work together in the field of human resources and presenting the job opportunities and our upcoming job fair that will now become an annual event. And so I would just encourage you to really follow us, stay tuned, keep checking in, stay tuned, and to be involved. One of the primary reasons, though, that I started My Sister's Closet is because over the course of my career, I've seen many candidates who've come in totally unprepared. And to be honest with you, there are candidates of color And so rather than it break my heart and say, woe is me, and that's so sad to see, I decided to do something about it. And I called my friends and family and said, this is what I'm going to do. And they jumped on board with me. And we formulated My Sister's Closet back in 2014. And so as we begin to make this transition into really honing in on the necessary skills from body language to speech to how to dress appropriately, we're going to talk about those things. But, you know, frankly, you can Google all that. You can go online and you can learn all those things. What we're going to talk to you about, and me primarily, is behind the scenes, really what you don't really get to see. You can't Google it. Okay, you can Google some things, but what I'd like to do is for my trainings is I like to switch the seats and have you see it from a different vantage point. But before we go there, I want to talk a little bit about, let's see if I can get my slides to move. I want to talk about the resume. This is my motto: the resume gets you the interview. The interview gets you the job. And although I say that a lot, people just sort of miss the mark. They spend a lot of time getting that resume fine, making it pretty, colors and bold and all kind of fonts on it. And they'll spend time on that. They'll even hire someone to do their resume for them, but they lose sight of the importance of the interview. And that's what gets you the job. The interview is just your work history on paper, and both are critically important. Both the interview and the resume and the interview are critically important. And My Sister's Closet has a full library of training that includes resume writing. We just did that, and it's really so helpful, powerful information. One of our coaches, I would just encourage you to go back, go on our website, go on YouTube, and follow and look at all of our trainings. Really powerful information that you would pay a lot of money for, and we're giving it to you free because we're so dedicated to your success. And so go online, you'll have more information about that at the end, but go online and take a look at all the strategies, techniques, and information on our website. We were on Facebook, we're on Instagram and YouTube, and I would encourage you to stay connected with us. All right, so again, the resume gets you the interview, but the interview gets you the job. So remember that. All right. So today we're going to talk about interview tips and tricks that you won't find on Google. We're going to put you in the seat of the interview. Did you see these interviewers? This is a panel interview, a group interview. I'll also talk about the in-person interview, and I'll talk about the interview, virtual interview, which is one of my favorite new topics to talk about since COVID has now got us in this place where we're looking at an interviewer through a screen. And I love the subject because it's so many juicy little tidbits that you probably didn't think about as part of the interview of what the interviewer is seeing, hearing, and noticing about you. It's a real judgy place, but we're gonna equal the playing field in that. So today's segment, I'm really going to go into the secrets of interviewing from the seat of the interviewer, the hiring manager's perspective. And all of us have that perspective. And so, you know, I'm going to invite my colleagues to share as well with me any of the other details that they might want to add to this. But again, this is information you can't really scroll through the web to find out some of the tips that we're going to share, but I'll spend some time on all three of those areas. So let's just move on to our wonderful virtual interview. Check out just the pictures here. I think the photos and the video below gives you a different perspective of a virtual interview, right? Just imagine what it looks like. These are two of my favorites, these pictures, the pictures that's on top. And what do you notice about these pictures? What are you seeing about these pictures, right? What stands out to you about like the video and as you take a look at the interview in process? just make a mental note about it, how it's coming across, and the interviewer's viewpoint. What are they looking at? One of the things that has gone away, right, in the virtual world is we cannot shake hands. So in the top photo, you'll see a wave, a new gesture that's come to acknowledge as opposed to a handshake. It's just that simple. So how do you acknowledge without a handshake when you begin an interview? Here is a great example of that. Just a wave, how are you, with just a word, how are you? I am Maria Stanfield, glad to be here. Boom. That replaces the actual handshake. Most people don't prepare for that. It's sort of, you get online and it's an awkward pause. You're kind of stepping all over each other, or there's nothingness. You're not sure if the other person is muted, if they hear you. So it's a good way just to introduce yourself without being over the top. So when they come on, it's a visual handshake. Is the, hi, I'm Maria Stanfield. It's so great to be here. Use that and practice that. Some of the things that we forget are just, those simple things that we forget, like how are we showing up? And so as you can see on the top picture, how does that feel? One of the other things, every interviewer is assessing not only you, but your surroundings. It says a lot about you. What does your background say about you? Like, what does my background say about me? Like, clearly I love flowers, but you can assess some things about me. You can make your own, we're going to say this, judgment about me just by looking at my background. You'll make it, you'll have an idea, put an idea in your head about what I like, right? What my room, am I in a private room? Do I have a bed behind me? What's going on? In my background, you'll see my my book from the front desk to the corner office here, the flowers, a picture that sort of blends with it, and then the curtains on either side, which look a little lopsided to me in this right now, but that's neither here nor there, but you get a feel for how they are assessing your background. Now, I have, 4 walls in this room. On another wall, I have some girlfriends and I went on to a paint party, and I have a beautiful painting that actually came out really well. It was a little scary for a minute, but it's a woman with a big afro, and she's got this like little heart-shaped dress on, and it's not giving a professional vibe. What you want to be sure of is that you're giving that professional vibe. How you present yourself is not just what you're wearing, it's also what your surroundings look like. Don't lose sight of that. Is the lighting good, right? Is your spacing good? Are you able to hear, see clearly? And I can't tell you how many times that was a huge fail for many of the people that I interviewed online. Sadly, folks just forgot about that. And they would have, all kind of things activity going on, or the space looked like they were in a garage, in a junk room or something. Even just the fact that if you don't have a private space, thankfully, Zoom, Teams, and a number of other virtual platforms have the ability for you to blur your background or for you to add a different background. When you look at those other backgrounds, though, that you can add in, that you can add through the app, one of the things that I would caution you is many of them, have you seen where people like are moving their hands and arms or their head, and like half their head is gone? And yeah, this is not a good look. And so as much as you can, you have a nice background, but if you can't, blur out your background. It'll work. Be sure you're in a space that is quiet. Just before we went live, I put my dog out because she loves to sit up under me. I have this fuzzy carpet. She just loves to sit up under me. So I had to remove the dog and let the family know, hey, I'm going to be going live. I'm going to be online recording. And so just set the atmosphere in your home, in your space, and for you to be comfortable in your space. because it comes across in your interview. If you're nervous, it's going to come across virtually, whether in person or virtually. So be sure that you are early to the interview, that when they log on, you're already there. It's just like you would do in person, right? You want to be there, showing up, ready. Look, and I've had a couple of interviews where the individual was off screen. It was I joined early. They were there and they were in the background, had not muted their computer. And I'm just saying, oh my gosh, it was not pretty. Also, what about those who don't have a computer? Because some people that I've interviewed had to interview on their phone at the time. And so I would just invest in one of the little stands, a little selfie stick and stand, where you're not, have you ever seen it where the phone, like, it looks like they're like all over the place moving? The movement is just unsettling. So I would caution you in preparing for your virtual interview that you think about your background, how you're presenting yourself. Really, it's just the waist up. We call it tabletop attire, from not too much jewelry, not too many things that are distracting on you. You're a background that's not distracting, but pleasant on the eye. And then from as you can look at the bottom, the video, this is one of my favorite looks here. I've never thought to do this before, but look at how the applicant is sitting in a chair just as she would in person across from an interviewer. Now, all of us don't have that ability to have that nice chair and a blank wall and all that, but I thought that was really captivating to bring apart. Nothing busy in the back, just simply the candidate sitting in a chair across from a computer, speaking with the interviewer. I just thought that was so captivating. And I noticed that immediately. What does that say about this candidate? She was clearly prepared. You can see the interviewer going through the resume. There's not a lot of movement. And you see her moving her hands, not too much. But I was doing a little research on virtual interviewing a few years ago when we first went into heavy virtual interviews. And it talked about people who don't show their hands, that the individual on the other side, it raises suspicion and provides a lack of trust. So you'll notice that I'll use my hands periodically, because showing your hands shows that a trust factor. I just thought that was super interesting. And so periodically, I will just clasp my hands or gesture with my hand gently. Not going too busy, but a simple gesture like that to invoke trust. I just found that just surprisingly interesting, but I get it. Now let's move on to the in-person. It's more the traditional interview. We know about dressing the part in order to impress the company. The same holds true with your virtual interview, but it's really putting it all together in person. You want to review questions that you will ask the interviewer. One of the things that just drives me crazy in an interview, after we go through an interview process, the candidate has no questions for me. They give one-word answers, and their eye contact is poor. Eye contact, both virtually and in person, I cannot tell you the critical importance of that. It is absolutely critical. And we fail to remember the importance of that. It's distracting when the candidate is looking off or down for extended periods. It shows a respect for the individual that you're speaking with, and that you're actually engaged and listening. So eye contact, body language, leaning in slightly, nodding. Sometimes when, I've noticed candidates, they will just nod, like continually. So just check yourself. You may want to even just put one hand under a thigh and to help you not move your hands too much. And when, the speaking, make sure that you understand the question. Ooh. So, we say you can Google all of this, you dress to impress, you review questions before the candidate, you be respectful about the interviewer's time, you show up, you do the handshake, all of those things. But let's get into the seat of the interviewer and how they're assessing you. One of the secrets is when you arrive in person, typically the person at the reception desk is really your first interview. The interviewer typically, and all of my friends who are in similar positions have shared, and we've sort of laughed about how we all do the same thing. How we ask our receptionist to make an assessment. How did the person arrive? Were they, befuddled? Were they, did they have to run in the bathroom and change their shoes? Would they pull it all together? The interview starts the moment you step off the elevator. You are already being assessed. People are already watching, assessing you, judging you, taking in all that you are. We had one candidate who was very rude to our receptionist, and part of our core values for our company is respect for one another. And so when the candidate came in and was so rude to the receptionist, and she didn't really give a lot of information on what occurred, but we could tell she was upset. And we asked if it was related to the candidate because everything else was going so beautifully. And she said, yes, but I'm fine. And it came out later, the encounter and the sharpness of the individual. And our position was for a high-level position, which says a lot about an individual, so that when you meet someone who's at a lower level position and instantly you are disrespectful to them, it sort of talks about and shares with us, it tells us a lot more behind that person. So really what the interviewer is trying to uncover is what we all put on, that wonderful interview cloak. I mean, from the attire, how we come in dressing for the part, but also we want to put on a face for everyone, but it's for everyone, right? And so we have to peel back the layers to find out who the person really is, and are they the right match for our team, for our environment, for our firm, for our company? Will they really fit into the environment that we have built, the culture of our firm, our business? And so remembering that the interview starts well before you interview with the actual interviewer, the hiring manager, it really begins before then. And preparing yourself and understanding the company that you are interviewing with is critically important. And we hear that, we see that, you can Google that. But what I mean by that is understanding who you're interviewing with. Researching the company and the person that you're interviewing with is equally as important as all the other research that you do. That you understand the perspective, the hierarchy of the company. Do you understand how the business operates? And if not, those are great questions. And when you're listing your questions, you want to have questions related not only to the job, but to the culture, to the practices, from diversity and inclusion to performance evaluations, to why the person before you left or is leaving. Was the person promoted? Did they leave to take on another job in a similar role, in a similar workspace? And so finding out that kind of information clues you in, because one thing that we forget about is that you're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. So you want to find out, is this the right position for you as well? So that's a little bit about the in-person interview training. Now let's go in, to one of my other favorites that really gets people off-centered a little bit, and that's when they go into a group or a panel interview. You know, you've got these people coming at you. As you can see in this slide, you got 4 people on one side, they got their computers up, and here you are on your side preparing for the interview for this group. So there are 2 types of these interviews, and the first type is the group and group activities, because we've actually even hosted interviews where we had a group of candidates meet with a group of a panel and interview together. That I do not recommend that for companies and businesses. It just seems to really stir up a lot of chaos because most of the interviewers were not comfortable with that. Not the interview candidates, the interviewers were sort of stumbling all over each other. But let's say that you have a group interview where you're meeting with a number of a panel, and they're going to all be asking you questions from multiple interviews, which often includes like a representative from HR, your potential boss, someone in a similar role to you, maybe even the outgoing individual who was in the position. And so, and companies do this on the front line of jobs to really filter out candidates that don't fit, and that as a group, they can identify, this is what we're looking for, and this is the kind of skills and culture that they're coming into, and do they really vibe with us, right? Are they really connecting with us as a group? And many of these group interviews, panel interviews, are subject to a battery of questions that you're going through, and lengthy. So prepare yourself accordingly. You will shake hands and make eye contact with each of the individuals. Important that when you extend your hand, that when they say their name, hi, I'm so-and-so, I'm Maria Stanfield, it's nice to meet you. So when they're introducing themselves, repeat their name. It will help you remember who you're speaking with. And when you're responding to questions, you have the ability to then speak back to Miss Smith, Mr. Rogers, Miss Peters. So you can use their names, and that does something for them, right? It's all very engaging when you can remember names and just jot down in order. As you can see in this panel, you would sit down and just Peters, Sanders, Robinson, and so that you know the order. It allows you a moment. If you're offered something to drink, take it. It gives you the ability so that we say, yes, I'll have a glass of water. One, it gives you a minute to gather yourself, sit down, gather yourself. It also gives you a minute to jot down a note. It gives you an opportunity that during an interview, and you want to think about the question, you can take a sip, think, stall for time. But it gives you a minute. And sometimes we need a minute because the interviewer is asking us questions that we may not be prepared for. And we want to think about it. And we want to give an appropriate answer. We want to give a strong answer. We want to give an answer that really is true to us and true to our skills, our experience, our credentials. And so with all of that, you have a moment just to take a little sip of tea, sip of water. Thank you so much for that question. And then respond. In that, be sure that you're making that eye contact, but not staring people down, right? You don't want to stare them down and like hold it. It's really got to be like, you're just like talking. And it's how uncomfortable is that? So we really want to lean into the conversation and get comfortable. Just take a deep breath, and no one has to like hear you with this deep breath, but preparing for your interview is really important that you present yourself in a calm, controlled manner, really speaking to the issues. If it's not on your resume, if you are unable to answer the question, have you ever been in that position where you just don't have the answer? there is a way to respond to things. So when you speak back to what you do have, for example, if you're asked a question that you don't have experience in that, although I don't have experience doing that, related to something that you do have, speak onto the things that you do bring to the table. Remember, the resume got you here. So they see something in you that they desire to bring in the company. So never forget the point that you bring something to the table and they see that on paper. Now bring that paper, bring that resume, bring that sheet of paper to life. Here they've seen you, now they get to meet who's behind all of those skills and credentials. And so go in confident, knowing that element brings a level of confidence to you that can settle you down and bring you some peace and confidence to portray in that interview. It's unsettling. That's why it's always good to have a job when you're going in for a job interview, because you don't have to have it. You don't seem desperate. I just remember too many candidates that they've told me repeatedly, I don't have a job, I can start right away. I'm like, that's a little unnerving. So even if you are desperate, you're never going to appear that way before the candidate, the interviewer. You are going to be a candidate that presents confidence. You are going to stand behind your resume. That's how you got there. You're going to be prepared with your questions. You're going to remember names because you need to follow up with them. Follow up is key. When the process of interviewing a lot of candidates, in a position, I remember we had over 500 resumes for one position. We interviewed 20 people, and it was hard to keep track of them after you get to 20. But it was the ones who followed up, who thanked me, who checked in to let me know that they were still interested. How much they enjoyed the interview, the company, how much they would love working at the company. Those are the people who became unforgettable. And if they didn't get that job, we even many times call back candidates like that. Because remember, I don't want you to sit on this. Don't sleep on this. Your resume got you the interview, which tells you the employer is interested in you. So don't let fear make you back out or shrink back or stumble. Let it provide you with the fuel that you need to propel forward and to be great at the interview. Trust me, when you think about it from that perspective, there's sort of a swag you have for that, right? Gives you a little oh, okay, yeah, they're interested in me. When you think about it from that perspective, you got this. You got this. When you can come to the table with an understanding that they reviewed all of your information, and this can be from a job interview, a college interview for your master's program. When you think about it from that perspective, it adds a level of confidence, because we want to have this imposter syndrome, oh my God, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, we start thinking about all of those things and everything that's wrong with us. But what you need to lead with is that they called you, they've reached out to you, they're interested because you got this. You got something they want. And that, my dear, is powerful. And when you can bring that strength, you bring confidence, a humility, but confidence that will have you answering questions and doing things and seeing things differently, not as one who is so insecure about it, but one who is thriving and ready and credentialed and experienced, maybe not in everything, but in a lot of things, and enough to get them to call you. So those are just some highlights that I wanted to share with you in today's training. We have an opportunity for you to get some one-on-one coaching, whether it's in resume writing, interview skills training, and the like. We have goal setting. We have a powerful segment on goal setting. Where do you want to take your career? What's your next? My Sister's Closet is here to provide support for you. This is our give back to the community. We want to take what we have been skilled in, what we've been trained in, and provide those skills to you. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to our incredible Executive Director, Jerry Goins, to close out our session. Thank you so much, Jerry, for the opportunity to present tonight.
Thank you. And before I close this out, I have a couple of questions.
Oh, sure.
We cannot stop learning, you'd be surprised. And so one of the things that I noticed in the video of the person interviewing is that she had a pillow on her lap.
Here.
Yeah. Yep. Right.
See
there.
that?
Mm-hmm. So do you think that that's a good idea? Do you think that's a thing for women and men, or?
I think she did that. As you can see, it's not distracting.
Right.
Thank you for noticing that. It's not distracting. It gives her the opportunity to, and what it's doing is helping her to sit up straight. Most people would put it behind their back, but you can see as she's resting her arms, it helps her sit up straight. So as long as it's not distracting, I think it works. It works to me. It works in this video. What do you think about it? Does it work for you?
It works for me. I just didn't know whether that was something that was, if it was distracting. I mean, I wouldn't have a problem with it. It's fine. It's perfectly fine. The other question I have is that I noticed that you mentioned when you are meeting the interviewers, you said Ms. or Mr. When you addressed them. And so, is there ever a time when it's okay to just address them using their first names?
When they say it's okay. When they say it's okay. So the interview is a very formal process. Until they give you permission to say, oh, please call me Maria. Please call me Jerry. Until they do that, until they ask you to pause with the Mr. or Ms., then you continue.
Okay.
So they'll give you the cues on when it's okay to release, to put the brakes on that. But don't assume it, because I'll just, candid conversation here and just keeping it real so that it will help our viewers. Many times my name, Maria Stanfield, people are not really sure, like, is she Maria? Is she Spanish speaking? Is she Black? Is she white? What? So I literally came out to a candidate once and she was like, oh my God, you're Black.
Wait.
But and then I've had others in the room with me as we're interviewing to get really comfortable, to begin to use slang, because they see someone on the other side of the table in this hiring position. And, I was like, oh my gosh, it's so great to have you here. Thank you so much for coming. And I will listen to this. If you don't take away anything else, I will get very casual. I'm like, oh my gosh. Ooh, did you see that traffic? How was it coming out here? How was it? And they're like, oh my God, the traffic was terrible. I hated it. And, and I've had people use profanity. I've had people use slang, and very comfortable with me in an interview. And I'm running the office. I'm running this firm. And they're that comfortable, they would use profanity at first meeting me, that they would use lots of slang, call me girlfriend in an interview. And for me, that's an immediate turnoff, because you don't respect my position and my role. Right. And because you don't even know, you're making assumptions about me that we're girlfriends. Mm-hmm. Those people don't get hired.
Yeah. Well, thank you. That was very enlightening.
So it's always formal. You're never girlfriends. You're never friends. It's an interviewer. You're trying to get the job. You're never on a friend basis. I don't care who it is, and I don't care how long you may have known them. It's an interview. You're being assessed. You're being judged for the position, for the culture, for the environment.
All right. Never stop learning.
That's right.
All right. Thank you, Maria.
My pleasure.
Really great presentation. I'm going to share my screen.
Okay, great.
So our workforce development schedule has been as follows. We had our first week was career goal setting. Our second week was resume writing. And this week, tonight, was interview training. We have one more session. It's next week. It's the wrap-up session where anyone can ask any question of the My Sister's Closet board. We're going to be meeting at 7 o'clock. So we look forward to responding to any questions you may have about getting a position and interviewing at the job fair that we're going to be having on Thursday, February 23rd. So I want to say thank you for attending this presentation and listening to what we had to share tonight. And we will be posting these videos on our website and all our social media platforms. And once again, our next session is Monday, February 13th at 7 o'clock, presented by our board. And you have to register. We like you to register for our job fair in the next session. So if you go to our website at www.mysistersclosetdmv.org, you can sign up there. And if you can copy and paste this link here that you see and click on that, you can register at our site on Eventbrite. And here we are with all our social media platforms. And thank you for joining us tonight. Have a good evening.